So, we have noted that it is 6:01 and we're going to call this meeting to order. It's really nice to be back in the same room with everybody. Thanks for coming. I wanted to say welcome to everybody, and it's nice that we're not just like Hollywood Squares faces anymore. And I would like to thank the board for confirming the new officers, and we all hope that we can do a good job for the Conservancy. With that said, we've got a pretty big agenda tonight, so we're going to move to public comment, and as we did in the past, we're going to do it for 10 minutes loosely, and you need to walk up to the podium, say your name and the district that you're from, and tell us what's on your mind. Okay. Okay, Gail.
I stopped by a neighbor's house who's lived at the lake for 20 years the other day, and she said, "What's with the big hole?" And I said, "Have you ever gone to a meeting?" She goes, "What meeting?" And I said, "We have this whole big organization." She's like, "What's organization?" And I know you send things out, but I was talking to another friend of mine, and he said, "Do they send a welcome package when people move in?" I said, "Well, how do you know who these people are?" But I'm wondering if we need to have some better way of communication, like I love the newsletter that comes out, but I think it only goes out to email. Like once or twice a year, we could send something to every address. I know once in a while they get something for a survey, but something more official, and also maybe try to make an effort for people, for each district to welcome people. I got a whole bunch of new people in District 5. I'm thinking about going door to door, baking them some cookies and saying hi. And you millionaires contribute to our foundation. So that's the other thing, is to make sure that there's more communication, so people know that they can do a tax-free contribution to the foundation to help the lake. I also saw in the last meeting that I didn't see the last meeting, but I read the notes, how the city was trying to get us to pave the parking lot. We paved parking, like pave Paradise and put up the parking lot. I want to make sure that I want to just make. Are
you going to break into the Joni Mitchell song?
Yeah. I'm an old hippie. I want to make sure. I want to just make an effort to say that I would like to see it to stay gravel, because then the water drains through and it's better environmentally. And I see you guys did reject their idea, and I just want to emphasize that's a good idea, and to keep rejecting paving anything. Thanks.
Thank you. And we have talked about welcome. Kathy and I have, back in years ago, talked about doing some kind of welcoming package to people, but to do a mailing probably makes some sense, so we'll look into that. All right, going once, twice, 3 times. Thank you for your comments. The agenda is now mostly going to be Adam, as Debbie is not able to be with us tonight, and Mike Blackwell is not able to be with us either. Take it away, administrative.
All right. Hold my packet here. First, we have the February 24th, 2022 minutes. If there's any corrections or additions, let me know. If not, I will request a motion to approve those.
I move to approve the February 24th, 2022 annual board meeting minutes as presented.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the annual meeting minutes. We are done with the roll call votes, so I would ask all those in favor to signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, yes, you may.
In the last paragraph, the word board is misspelled, if that makes any difference.
We want to be perfect as we can be. We'll correct that. We don't need to start over. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right. Item B is we have the 2022 Independence Day fireworks contract. The contract is for with Heath Hetty and Bill Hawkins, who have done the fireworks show for, I believe, the past 4 years now. The proposed dates are July 3rd, which is the Sunday, is the show date, and then Monday, July 4th as the rain date. It's for the amount, amount of $8,000. If we want to increase that, I'm fine with it. But I think this is what we agreed on in the budget.
I think it is.
So if there's any discussion, welcome that. If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve the 2022 Independence Day fireworks contract for the amount of $8,000.
So moved.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So obviously Healy, is that his name? No, what's his name?
Hawkins?
Hawkins,
And
sorry.
Teddy, yeah.
He does this professionally, right?
Yes, yeah.
And
they're
so
li-
if we pick up the day before 4th of July and then have the 4th of July as a rain date, doesn't he have that already covered by somebody else? Doesn't he have?
No, the big shows are going to be on Saturday, the one that they're doing for Ellettsville, I believe. So as of now, they've got nobody on
Okay.
the 4th, so.
Because the 4th is Monday,
Yeah, right.
and lots of people will have to go back to work on
Sure.
Tuesday. Hi, Steve.
Watch out for that cable, Steve.
Okay.
It is a good question. So it's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the fireworks contract. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Next, we have the annual board conflict of interest policy. This is an annual requirement for the board of directors to state if you have any conflicts, such as contracts with third-party vendors. Generally that. I don't believe there's anybody with conflicts now since we don't have any marina owners on the board anymore. I just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to review that. If you have any questions, let me know. We will send that out via Adobe Sign and just signing off that you do not have any conflicts. If you do, you can state those at that time. So there's not really any motion for that now, just we'll be sending that out and please review it. Finally, we have our amendment of State Form 144, which is the statement of salary and wages. We have updated this when we were looking for the operations supervisor, as originally budgeted at $40,000. We really weren't getting any bites anywhere. We had approved in the last board meeting going to 45. We ended up having a couple applicants, one applicant, which we believe will be very beneficial to the board and to the Conservancy district as a whole. I interviewed them and the board officers met him as well, Ross Carlson. We've actually offered a job offer and he signed that, so he'll be starting. We did offer, he's actually taken a little bit of a pay cut to come from Indiana Department of Environmental Management of about $2,000, but we ended up offering $47,000 to bring him down to the lake. And that was discussed with the board directors, but what we need to do is formalize that in our budget. So the only changes on the State Form 144 would be the operations supervisor is now at $47,000. I also added for the equipment operator an hourly rate. And now haven't had any bites yet on the operators. We've had a handful of applicants, not really anybody that's been qualified or capable of doing the job. So
Well, and we also got some data from a recruiting firm about what people who have that job in this area, in this geographic area, would make. And it's like $54,000,
they said $55,000 is kind of a starting salary.
So we are well below, even with this raise. So I think we're going to have a tough time finding an equipment operator. And it seems that all the positions, are demanding more money at this point.
Yes, and I have had a little bit of interest from a couple seasoned operators that can't do the job full time, but they're interested in coming in intermittently if we can group some projects together. So that's why I'd like to go ahead and have the hourly wage on there so I can offer that. The hourly wage is up to $33 per hour. So if there's any more questions or comments on that, if not, I would request a motion to approve State Form 144 as amended.
Is there any?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve amendment to State Form 144. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right, Treasurer's Report. Debbie is not able to make it tonight, so I will be handling this. For our February financial highlights, our total checking and savings accounts are $1,295,655. That includes $709,000 for the construction account. Our total fixed assets are $1,080,594, bringing our total assets to $2,376,249. Our current liabilities, which are primarily the bond, total $1,146,878. For the month of February, we had an income of $13,478. That was primarily sublease, park reservations, and then interest in the accounts. We had expenses of $137,349. $123,000 of that was the sediment mitigation project. Now, those are the funds that are encumbered. They're stated on here, but we will be working with the State Board of Accounts to make sure that we are putting those incorrectly into the state systems. So that $123,000 is part of the encumbered funds that we brought into 2022 for that United Earthworks contract. Compared to 2021, we did have an increase in income of $2,685, again, primarily due to the sublease fees coming in early. And then for expenses, expenses were at $29,000 more from 2021, but that was the sediment mitigation. There are the graphs that are in there for the previous year income comparison, the net income, and the expenses. Are there any questions on the financials from February? If not, I'll move on to the allowance of vouchers. We have the report of claims for February 2022, 4 pages totaling $134,139.06. Again, that's primarily the sediment management and payroll. Are there any questions on the expenditures or allowance of vouchers? If not, I'll request a motion to approve the report of claims allowance of vouchers for February 2022.
Move to approve the February 2022 claims in the amount of $134,139.06.
Steve has seconded the motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve the report of claims. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Next on the docket, we have the 2023 budget timeline. The deadlines for the public discussion, hearing, and adoption are set by the State Board of Accounts. So this is pretty much just highlighting the process that we'll go through. Through current until June 18th, we'll be preparing the 2023 budget. At June 18th, we'll present it at our summer meeting at Riddle Point Park. July 28th will be the first public discussion. August 25th will be the second public discussion. Any changes to the budgets or adjustments must be made by the conclusion of the August 25th board meeting. September 22nd will be the public hearing on the 2023 budget, and October 27th will be the adoption of the 2023 budget. As we have in the past, we will utilize the board officers for the development of the budget, and we'll present that as we make it. So we don't need a motion on that. That is just an update on the timeline and how we'll be moving through.
Okay. All
Up
right.
again.
You're still up, Adam. We're into the manager's
All
report.
right. First up, we do have a Shell Marina boat rental discussion. We have Steve Warner here, who's one of the new Marina owners, and he's actually dropped off a little packet. I'll let you come up, Steve, or you can talk from there if you want.
Can you circle back to us? My son's on it. He went to the district office.
Oh, really?
He's on it. He should be walking in any minute.
Yeah, we can do that.
We can do that.
He's done a lot of the legal work on it, so.
That's fine.
Is that all right? Wait a minute.
No, we can do
Yeah.
that.
All right, sediment management project update. The upland sediment receiving basin is completed. The spillway pipe's in. All the geo-wrap is around the entire outside, and that's all been seeded. The only thing left to do over there, which does not impact the project itself, is the straw and seeding of the western basin. We have installed silt fencing all around that, while we have all the rain to try to prevent any sediment from sloughing off and moving into the stream right there. Once it dries out a little bit, they will be able to do the final grading and seed and straw that. Heartland Dredging has started bringing in piping. Over the next couple weeks, they'll actually be putting the piping together over at our Possum Trot disposal site on the north side. That's where they're gonna stage their projects from, so they'll be fusing the pipelines together, then floating them out for that dredging project. They're still on the timeline of starting in April, so it's coming up very quick, which will be awesome to see them out on the water. Yes.
Can I ask a question about the pipe? So I assume they're charging us for the pipe. They come and they weld it. It comes in 40-foot sections and they heat weld the stuff together. And now we've got this really long pipe that we'll use, and then they're gonna cut it up and take it away? Or are we gonna
They
keep it?
reuse the sections on it, so they use them in between projects.
What would it cost to keep the pipe? Any idea?
I asked him about that, and he said they are not willing to sell us the pipe at this moment because they can barely find it. He said they buy about 100 miles of pipeline a year, and their order this year is they're using pipe that they have, and they can't really get any new pipe. So they said at this point in time they wouldn't be willing to keep that pipeline on the water. But not to say if they get their order in, we can't talk with them again about that. But at this time, but they do reuse that piping between
Yeah, I remember.
projects. All right. Next up, we've started the dredging task group, the manager's task group, to discuss our historical dredging operations and then develop a policy moving forward for what the Llcd will be focusing on as far as dredging projects, what will become the responsibility of homeowners, and how we're going to do that. The first couple of meetings, what we have been focusing on, I'm actually going to bring my PowerPoint over, is really just trying to gather the data to look at.
Wow, there's an old picture.
This is one of the, I'll cut back. This is actually a picture that Les had gotten from the USGS.
Well, Indiana has a whole library of aerial photographs starting from the 30s on up till now. And so that was the oldest one that I could find after the lake went in. So what, I think it was what? Yeah, 54, 1954. So the previous one showed a bunch of fields.
Yeah.
It's 1938, I think.
The one before that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the first couple of meetings, really what we've been doing is gathering the data that we have, the financial records, looking at kind of where we've been dredging, what type of zones we've been dredging, how much we've been spending on that, percentages, and then looking at the costs that we're incurring and the costs that the freeholders are paying for private dredging, and comparing that to contracting prices as well. So this is really kind of a data dump that we pulled together into a visual, and then after some discussion today, we'll come back once we've had a time to think about it and then start proposing an actual policy to put together. So when we start off, I'll actually jump to, here's a relatively current photo. I believe this is from 2019. And so you can really see just the extent of that eastern delta where it's been moving in. So the historical dredging analysis. This is our sediment removal map that was, I believe, created in 2006. When we initially started the project, that way we could classify all the zones, number them all, and then as we're out dredging, we can pick our priorities. We can say we've been working in this zone. So this is the initial map that was created. The east end does look very different. You can still see how shallow it was at that area. There's 3 types of zones in this mapping, level 100, 200, and 300 zones. The level 100 zones are dock access areas, areas that are greater than 10 feet and less than 60 feet away from shoreline, water depth less than 4 feet, a normal pool. And then in coves less than 100 feet, that can extend shoreline to shoreline, which we have seen getting the equipment into these zones. The boating safety area are level 200 zones, and these are areas greater than 60 feet from the shoreline with water depth less than 5 feet. And then boating channels are these 300 level zones, that are the narrow channels which provide access to the main body of the lake. And to jump back to the map, you can see the 100s are primarily directly along the shoreline and the docking areas and the boating channels. The zone 200s extend out into the lake, and then the zone 300s are kind of in these main boating areas and safety areas where everybody recreates. So that's the way the map was initially broken down. So all this analysis is since 2006 and includes all of our dredging, including these initial ones, including private, and also when we contracted out in 2006 and 2007, it was contracted to Dick Payne. I believe in a little bit of 08 as well. 2009, we took the year off, created the Possum Trot disposal site, and we purchased the equipment and started in 2010 in-house. The first chart shows total yardage removed by the district during this time frame, a total of 157,104 cubic yards. And then this is showing split up into the districts. So we have 21,000 and change District 1, 4,000 District 2, 500 in District 3, 5,900 in District 4, 10,000 in District 5, 63,000 in District 6, and then 51,000 in District 7. And again, this includes all the private as well, which is a pretty nominal amount of the total yardage that we removed. Next up, we have the percentages of the total yards removed by district. Again, this is inclusive of everything. We have 40% is in District 6, 37% in District 7, 14% in District, I can't even read that on this thing. And District 1. And then very minimal in the middle districts, and then 4% in District 4 and 6% in District 5. So this is the percentage of our total yardage that we have removed for any of the districts. And that makes sense. The sediment's coming in from Bean Blossom Creek. It's dumping out on the east end of the lake. So District 6 and 7 are going to require the majority of the dredging, even with these big open water projects such as the hydraulic dredging project, just because that's where the sediment's coming in. So then we have the yardage removed by zone type, and the zone types refer to that level 100, 200, and 300. And then I have private dredging in here, so I actually broke out the private dredging, and then maintenance zones, and that's kind of at our disposal sites, at the coves near the office, the loading and unloading zones for the sediment. So for the access channel dredging, the zone 100 level, we have 105,000. So the bulk of the sediment has been dock access channels. And again, these are right along the shoreline, providing access to the docks. We have 8,300 for our transfer site and maintenance sites, 37,000 for the common area. So that would be the main boating safety areas, boating zones, recreation areas. And then 5,000 for private dredging, 5,400. So as a percentage, so far since we've started the dredging operation and contracted it out, 67%, almost 68% has been just docking access. So we have been dredging, keeping the access open to the docking areas in these channels, but we have really not been doing a whole lot of the main areas. So 23% is actual open recreation boating safety zones that are utilized by everybody on the lake, freeholders and the general public that come in.
So since 2010,
2006.
2006,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we have taken out over 100,000 cubic yards
Correct.
that was dock access.
Correct, yes.
That's the size of our project.
Yeah, it is, yeah, and that's amazing too, is that we're gonna be
No,
hopefully
not
taking
that
out
we,
120.
we took that out over 15 years.
And we'll be matching that in one season, which
Right.
is pretty amazing. The technology and the order of magnitude and efficiency that it provides is pretty awesome. Again, we are paying for that. I think the cost comparisons will be relatively similar for that, but the fact that we can do that in one season is going to be awesome. So when we look at the expense since 2006 for the zone types, we have spent $1.7 million just on dock access. and $615,000 on the open recreation areas and the safety areas. $138,000 on private dredging. Now again, that money's primarily recouped.
Right.
And then $89,000 on our maintenance areas. So total cost since 2006 is $2,612,820. And this includes everything. This amortizes the equipment 100%. So this is from our starting cost, including all the equipment purchase, all that cost. So this is indicative of all the costs that we have for this entire project. So the first thing that I wanted to do is look at the historical cost of dredging to the Llcd, because we have done studies in the past and we've presented numbers in the past, but what we haven't done is really included the equipment cost in those numbers. We haven't included a lot of the maintenance costs from the original ones that I had seen. So I remember hearing all the time that we were digging at $5,000 to $10,000 or $5 to $10 per cubic yard of sediment. But when we actually go back and we amortize the equipment and we look at what we've done since the beginning, we're actually closer to $17.50 when we include the cost of the equipment in there. If we exclude the capital cost of equipment, we're at $12.16 per cubic yard. Now, when we take out all the private riprap, private work wages, riprap materials, that was primarily Llcd before, I'd say the extent of it, and currently riprap just the past couple of years has been private, so we have recouped funding on that. So the best way that I figured to exclude the riprap and focus exclusively on the dredging was to make the assumption that private work wages, the riprap materials, which we have categories for, and the private work revenue, if we take all those out, then we're pretty much looking at the dredging costs themselves.
Okay.
So when we do that, we're at $16.50 per yard. And then once I started seeing these numbers, I was, kind of getting in my head. I was like, wow, I know we've gotten quotes before in the $15 range, $17 range, $18. And we've kind of always done it in-house because we thought there was a major savings there to the Llcd. So these are the capital costs or the yardage costs as they are since 2006, once we include all of our numbers. So I wanted to look at a cost comparison, and we're kind of transitioning over to the private work.
Adam, before you jump to the next one, do
Yes.
you have what the cost would be like for the last couple of years? Because obviously I would presume that in 2006, the expenses probably were less, and just with inflationary costs, that it's more this one. So I would say this is probably an average, and my presumption would be that if we looked at just like the last couple years, it's probably going to be even above that rate.
Yes, yeah, so this is an average across all the years,
All
yes,
those
including
years,
total.
yeah.
So if we looked at just the past couple of years and say since 2015 or 16 when we built the small barge and purchased that equipment, you probably would be looking at more than that. In 2006, we actually did receive a grant that paid for a lot of the dredging and then helped purchase the barge. I did include those fundings because why it was grant, it's real money that was spent by the Llcd. So whether it would have been grant or money out of our pocket, that's cost that's associated with the project. And I do have all of our annual numbers since the beginning, so if you did want to know something specifically for those years, I can bring that back.
Thank you.
And then as we talked about the barge and kind of the aging large excavator and how the repairs are becoming more frequent and more costly, if we look at replacing some of that equipment from our original purchase, such as the large excavator, which you're going to be looking at least $100,000, $80,000 for maybe something decent used, but I would say at least $100,000 to replace that, then you would substantially increase that cost.
Right.
If we're purchasing new equipment, because then we'd have to amortize that equipment into this cost as well. So you would look at that going up pretty substantially. So for the cost comparison, and we can actually use this chart too to look at the cost of contractors for yardage removal. This kind of shows, so I'll start off with that. So the cost from the dredging contractors that we've talked to, McCullough Dredging, who has contracts around the state, and we actually went and checked out his operation at Heritage Lake a handful of years back. And then we have contractor pricing from Heartland Dredging, and I got those numbers from them to look at what they would charge for per cubic yard. That's $18.50 for McCullough, and then $17.75 per cubic yard from Heartland Dredging. I mean, so those numbers are essentially within $1 per yard of our operating cost right now. If we were have never to brought that in-house and paid that out, we would have spent close to the same amount of money to get that same amount of yardage removed at these prices, because we're right in that realm. So what I really wanted to do is look at how lucrative the private dredging is for the LLCD, how much that would cost if we were to have a contractor come in and provide those services, and so we can see the savings or expenses that would be added on to the freeholders themselves. I want to mention that we do not want to reduce the level of services at Lake Lemon. We want to ensure that we have these services, we have dredging services, we have riprap services. We don't want to see a degradation in the level of services that we're providing. What we're really doing is looking at an analysis to say, are we doing this best in-house, or is it more cost effective to look at somebody else to do this? So that's really what we're doing now. Do we continue forward doing it ourselves and getting by with that, or do we look at somebody else coming in and having that moved on to a third party? So for riprap applications specifically, the freeholder cost per ton of riprap comes out to about $43.85. And I'll just go off the whole numbers. About $43 per ton of riprap that we apply. And I base that off of our kind of normal cost. An average job for riprap will usually be about 2 triaxles worth of stone and 5 hours worth of work. So I kind of based all this off the tonnage that we see in the triaxles, and plus our amount of work that we have in there. So about $43 per ton of riprap application for the LLCD. The contractor cost through McCullough, they had proposed, and these numbers are from a 2021 contract that they have with Heritage Lake, where they have an ongoing maintenance contract. Their cost per ton of riprap installed was $41.25. And then Heartland Dredging, they kind of based this off the current pricing, and they said, they'd have to look at what the cost of stone is exactly, but they were estimating about $47 per ton. So if you look at the net cost of what the freeholders would be paying, whether the LLCD is performing this private work or whether an outside contractor is performing this work, is about a $2.60 savings per ton for McCullough, a $3.60 increase per ton for Heartland Dredging. An average triaxle load that we receive is usually around 17 tons. I would say 17 to 19 tons is about what they can fit in the triaxle on the tickets that we get. So, kind of a little bit of savings with McCullough, a little bit of increase with Heartland. So then we move to the dredging. For the large barge, we say it's about 100 cubic yards. We base it off the barge load because they can be plus or minus depending on the type of sediment that you're in. But the average volume would be about 100 cubic yards. We charge $1,500 for that, so $15 per cubic yard. If the LLCD is digging privately, the McCullough contract with Heritage Lake is at $18.50 per cubic yard. And then the contractor cost from Heartland is $17.75 per cubic yard. So these are both an increase compared to what we charge currently for the large barge. And then I just wanted to show, if we're looking at that same amount, what the cost would be on the contractor. So if you were to purchase a large barge worth of dredging from LLCD, you're at $1,500. Large barge from McCullough Dredging would be $1,800. And a barge worth from Heartland would be $1,700. So you're looking at, upwards of $300 increase per large barge load, which I think is pretty nominal. The huge difference that you see is when we look at dredging with the small barge for the private, and that seems to be we're doing a little bit more and more with the small barge and get to more locations. And since it's the younger barge and not broke down as much, we'll be utilizing that more in the future. And the LLCD, we make more money if we're doing private work utilizing that small barge. So this is where you really see the huge difference. That small barge is about 33 cubic yards, and we charge $1,000 for that for one barge removal. So that comes out to $30 per cubic yard that the freeholders are paying to the Llcd if we're doing private work with our small barge. Now the contractors, they don't base it off the barge load, they base it by the cubic yard, no matter what type of equipment that they're using. So when you look at our cost for the small barge versus what the contractors would be for that same barge amount, that 33 cubic yards, it's an $11.50 savings when you're looking at McCullough, and a $12.25 savings when you're looking at Heartland Dredging. I mean, so that's like a 30% plus cost reduction that a contractor would have compared to the Llcd performing the same amount of work based on what we currently charge. And we do know that there are the mobilization charges that come into that. And so that was one thing that I definitely wanted to find out, because we don't incur much of a mobilization charge for our own. We spend per year about $2.5 thousand for our cranes and laborers that take the push boat out, put the counterweights on and off, and then the time that it takes to set up the barges and all this. So with the mobilization, and I actually got this from McCall, he said their average is about $6,000 to $10,000 for mobilization fee for their equipment. And so that would be when they bring it down to put on the water. So there's a little bit of mobilization cost on that initial amount. And that's something that could go multiple ways, you know, if we ever looked into utilizing a contractor for that, whether that price gets integrated into the yardage cost, or if that's something that, say, the Llcd would be willing to pay the mobilization, since it's a minimal cost to get the barge on the lake, so we have people providing those services. So I think we could look at that in multiple ways. So the biggest thing is, and as we're moving towards the small barge more, I mean, it's just a substantial savings that you would see for private work. Yes, Malcolm?
That doesn't ring true to me, I'm sorry to say that, but obviously the larger equipment is going to be more efficient at moving dirt, right? You're doing it in one load, you're doing huge scoops and all that. So what you're comparing is apples and oranges. You're comparing our doing it inefficiently against somebody with big equipment doing it efficiently. And I don't see how that's a good comparison.
Well, McCall used, I mean, it's just per the yardage cost. So that's why I tried to base it off the actual yardage cost. I mean, so they have small barges and large barges that they use. So this is just strictly a per yardage cost. Whether we're more efficient or less efficient, or they're more efficient and less efficient, that would be what the yardage cost would be for the removal.
Okay, I will think on that thing, think about that.
Yes.
Are there other factors than just cost?
Yes, and that's what we're finding out with the staffing. That's what brings back and kind of what really started kind of going down this road as our equipment is aging and as we're looking at doing the more work in the future, is these big companies. I mean, how many times have I sat here in a meeting and the discussion is, why isn't the barge running? Why is it broken down? Why is the equipment not there? Why do we not have a staff member running? Why do we not have multiple backup staff members? Why do we not have backup equipment for this? So that really plays into it. I mean, when we talked with that recruitment company, and they were saying in this region, and they looked at these counties, surrounding counties, the average starting salary for an equipment operator is $55,000. Now that's just for somebody in the seat on land, not necessarily boating experience. That's just for the operator. And then what I've been finding too with these operators is you can find operators that can do general maintenance, the greasing, that kind of stuff, but most of the operators are not mechanics as well. With these larger companies, your operators are showing up, they're jumping in the seat, they're running equipment, maybe doing like the daily maintenance routines. But if these machines go down, they send that machine to a shop, they're having a mechanic work on it, they're bringing in a backup piece of equipment, so you don't have that downtime constantly with the equipment. And we really don't have in-house, I mean, we don't have the tools, we don't have a shop, we don't have the backup equipment, We've lucked out with our operators in the past because they were farmers or grew up with families that ran equipment operating companies, so they had these tools that they could bring to the job and some of the know-how. We still needed to contract out any major repairs, but some of the small repairs we could do in-house. But so that's kind of what you're looking at too, is I usually go through about 3 push boat operators a year, 2 to 3 a year, and it's because they'll come in, they find other jobs, or they come in and realize that seasonal part-time hourly work doesn't necessarily pay the bills, it doesn't get you healthcare insurance, it's not gonna get you further in retirement.
Well, and the ones who, I would just chime in here and say the ones who were have been good get, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm gonna go get a union job, or I'm gonna go to this company because I'll make more money and have benefits. So we're never gonna sustain a year-round position for that particular work.
Yeah, and especially the push boat operator, but even with the equipment operator, we would have to pay for that. I mean, we're gonna have to substantially raise the prices for that. And then it's tough as well, there's a learning curve on that. You can't just bring anybody that's operated, you know, especially if you have a younger kid that can operate reasonably on land and then throw them on a barge in the water where you're within 5 to 10 feet of a $70,000 boat and you're controlling the whole movement of this barge with that machine. I mean, so it's a skill set that takes time to learn and to get comfortable on that, or else there's very big liability. And while we have been looking, that's kind of one of the biggest things that I've been running into is people either aren't current on their operating skills, or they're kind of younger and they're just starting to operate at that price range. And I can't just go take 2 people that have never worked on a barge, you know, a 20-year-old push boat operator and a 23-year-old machine operator, and just throw them on a barge out in the water in these type of situations. It gives me nightmares at night. It really does have these type of people out there. So I think we would have to, if we did it in-house, we would have to bump up the salaries to get these people and probably do a national search to bring in. And so if we were doing a national search to bring in an operation or a manager to run this dredging project and operate, then we're increasing our salary, then we're also increasing our per yardage cost. I mean, so that even bumps it up to at contractor pricing.
Becomes a
plus.
vicious cycle.
Well, one of the things we're working against right now is the January unemployment rate in the state of Indiana was 2.4%. Most economists will say 3% is full employment. So we are struggling. Unemployment rate in Indiana in January was 2.4%. In Monroe County, as of December, I don't see the January numbers yet, was 1%.
So everybody that wants a job pretty much has a job.
Yeah, if I might add, I mean, I think dredging is a highly specialized, you know, skill, equipment requirements, all that kind of stuff. And like you were saying, one wrong move and we'd have that backhoe in the water. And then you have the environmental issues that go with that and all that. And I just think maybe it's time to get out of the business of full-time dredging, because we got our hands full with enough of other stuff going on, you know. I mean, we're trying to run a lake here, and that is a whole nother ballgame in my mind, you know, in terms of the equipment and the skills and the cost and all that kind of stuff. And we're seeing it right now. You can't find anybody. You know, I mean, that may solve the issue for us. If we can't find anybody to run the equipment, we're going to be out.
And we really lucked out with the past operators too, because our initial operator came from the company that we were contracting out, so he's already trained, familiar with equipment. You could do maintenance, that kind of thing. And then our second operator, who we had for the past 2 years, actually trained under that guy. So he was a push boat operator for us intermittently for about 4 years before he started running that equipment. So there was a level of...
And then a question, and maybe for clarification, so if there was to be an agreement with contractors, so what we would enter into some kind of agreement, and then if a freeholder wanted some riprap or dredging done, they'd simply contact them directly and you do your thing. But we would have to approve, you know, the contractor. I mean, they just couldn't get anybody, right? Is that the thought?
Correct. I think the best course of action that we can invest the companies would be to have a contract with a company for them to come and operate on the water. And then once they're here on the water, I mean, I assume it'd be like the dock operations. You would call up the company, you would
So
work
what
with them.
What we're really talking about is outsourcing.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
And then it really becomes the
So
contractors.
One of the things that I
charge.
think we need to look at too, and looking at my packet, it looks like you did an analysis of the revenue that we're collecting off of our private projects. So it looks like, based on your assessment, we netted about $7,000.
Correct.
But had we kept our operator the entire year, it would have been a net loss of around 16.
Yeah.
Correct, yes. We ended up saving money because he quit and actually went to another position. And prior to that, he dropped down to hourly, so he could make more money hourly, so we got lost the cost of benefits there.
And do the 8,200 that is operation supervisor, is that just the wages, or does that also include employer taxes?
That is strictly the wages. That doesn't include the FICA, SUDA, PERF, or
So it's
any of
under
that.
7.
Correct. Steve,
Yeah, two questions. You have McCullough and Heartland. Are there other vendors that we could look at? Number one question. Number two, do you know which lakes McCullough and Heartland actually take care of, and do you get any feedback from some of those lake people?
So there are, I would say there's 3 companies that I definitely know of, McCullough, Heartland, and then SRS, that I have dealt with the Indiana Lakes Management Society. And then McCullough actually currently has the contract with Heritage Lake, and I think there's 2 other lakes that he does currently, and Debbie is actually working on setting up a meeting, and we're gonna go up and meet with Heritage Lake to talk about how they enjoy it, the type of benefit they feel they're receiving, and to find out about that. So we do want to actually go talk to the lakes that have these contractors on the lakes.
Well, that's not a very big lake. And you say, yes, I mean, I just wondered if they have the capability of taking our business, should we go that route? And yes, do we get that third opinion when you throw out a bid for the project?
Yes, absolutely.
Who was the third company?
SRS?
SRS.
Okay, so who does Sweetwater and Cordray?
SRS has done that, but they haven't done dredging in a long time. They received a grant, I believe, early on when they first did it, and then now it's any dredging that happens is strictly on the back of the freeholder. So if somebody wants to hire somebody in to come in around their dock, they'll come in and do that. So they don't have a budget for dredging when I was talking with their manager, aside from when they had that initial layer grant. And the layer is the Lake and River Enhancement Funds, and that's where we had some of our first grant money funds. But there's a cap on that for, I believe it's $250,000 for the lifetime of the lake. And so we capped out on that, so we're not eligible for any more Lake and River Enhancement funding currently, the way that it's set up.
So when private people on Sweetwater or Cordray contract with someone, do you know who that is?
I will talk to their manager and find out about that. I believe SRS has been out there a handful of times because they use pretty small, easy to mobilize barges. But I will reach out and find out about that.
Sorry if I'm Mr. Contrary, and I don't,
No.
but it just helped me think this through. I like the way that Mary Jane put it, that we were looking at outsourcing this. In my mind, from a business perspective, there's no doubt that if we were absolutely serious about this and we were getting into the dredging business and we were going to do it and make it efficient, that would be the way to get to the absolute rock bottom dollar per yard moved. Okay, but the question is, do we want to go that way? I don't know that we do. Okay, I just wanted to make that clarification that that's how you actually get there, but that we're not interested in doing that.
Well, I think, this is the age-old question, isn't it? Who do we want to be as a lake? Do we want to be a dredging operation? Or do we want to follow the district plan and focus on, water quality and preserving recreation and boating activities? We have a park, it's like, how big do we want our staff to be? Because
Right.
if we were going to really address everything that needs to be
The
addressed.
question is, are we competent to do the job
Yeah,
well?
and
Because if we don't do it well, it would be the worst
So that was
way.
way back when we started the SPC, I hate to bring that up, but we talked about what our competencies were.
Mhm.
And I have never thought that dredging was a competency of this team, which right now consists of Adam and Jessica.
Jessica, do you run?
No offense.
And I agree with that. I mean, the way that you would get to the bottom dollar is to go all in and build a dredging company. But the way to fund that is, with our current tax level, you could contract us out. If we were to do that, I mean, you are looking at another multi-million-dollar operation.
So, and I know Steve had his hand up, but can I jump in here? The other piece of this is, no, I am not the president. I'm the chair. The other piece of this is, with everything else that's going to be coming at us, and the thing that I would say is life on Lake Lemon in 2006 was different than it is in 2022. And we know that this first dredging project, and everybody knows how much effort and sweat and thinking and, scrounging for money has gone into our ability to get this off the ground. Let's not be under the delusion we're going to be in that business.
No, I think that
And,
this is a good year
so
to
it's
explore.
where do you take your,
Right.
put your resources and your effort?
Right, this is a good learning year for us, because we're gonna hire out part of it, see how that goes. We've got, the large barge is gonna be used for private dredging some of the time, I think.
The large barge? Or the
Something
small
is-
barge?
Whatever's gonna be used for private
Yeah, we'll have a
dredging.
barge available, yes, for private.
We'll see
But,
how much.
but who's gonna run it?
Once we get staffing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if we were able to staff it. So, Steve, I'm sorry, go ahead.
To help clarify your question, which is a good question, do you have any idea what other reservoirs are doing? I mean, if it would help to give us some idea, 80% of the other reservoirs are not doing dredging, and only 20% are on their own. It might give us an idea as to what the standard is.
We are currently the only Conservancy district in the state of Indiana with an in-house dredging operation.
Well, there you go.
How many are there? There's some.
Conservancy districts?
Well,
Similar to us, I've been in contact with, I believe, 6, I'd say 6 to 8 that I've actually been able to get answers from.
And we occasionally find out that we're kind of an oddity, is the way I feel.
We are,
It's
yeah.
like-
The majority of them are either on northern, like Kettle Glacial lakes that don't have the sedimentation issues, or they're owned by DNR/Army Corps of Engineers. So we're in a very unique position to be a Conservancy district running a non-DNR lake, so we don't receive funding from the state. And when I talked with them primarily on their dredging, it seemed like the majority of the ones that I talked to would dredge either one, when they had grant money available, they would dredge. 2, they would have groups of homeowners. If there was one small area, say a cove or a channel, they would have those homeowners pool together and pay for that dredging. Or 3, they provide a cost share type program where, based on the amount of people that they're helping and the areas, if they have the funding available, they would help cost share some of that. So,
And
So that's-
also, I mean, how should I put this? I think that most of these lakes were built, 1950 to 1970, that gap, okay? And because of the amount of sediment coming in, we're reaching end of life faster than most of the other lakes. But I think we're gonna find that in the next 10, 15 years, all of the other lakes are now gonna say, dredging's a real problem, we've gotta do something. But we're the first ones there. So in that regard, we may be unique too.
yeah, it seems like all the southern lakes, I mean, they're primarily Army Corps of Engineers lakes, but they're all, even Lake Monroe in the northeastern areas, they're starting to deal with sedimentation now, whether it's removal or dealing with their watershed. Patoka Lake and all the ones down there are beginning to have sedimentation issues, and they're all active reservoirs as well, which is the double whammy because they're losing capacity for drinking water. And then it kind of brings too, I mean, I had some notes. So last year, our entire dredging operation was about $140,000 that we spent on that. when we look at the average across the entire time, it's about 171,000 once we include the equipment and everything that we average annually over that period since 2006. So our current hydraulic contracting that's going on, including mobilization, not including the disposal site, but including the mobilization, everything for the Heartland dredging, is at $7.33 per yard. So I mean, that's less than 50%, almost 60% less cost per yard. So if you're actually looking at those type of costs too, that 171,000 per year average, that's the removal of about 23,000 yards at that cost. And one thing that we need to look at is again, going back to the percentages, 73%, I believe it was, has been done just on these docking access channels. While we've watched the Eastern Bay itself, the main body of the water that's used by everybody, freeholders, non-freeholders, boaters, the safety areas, why that's just continued to fill in. And I think one of the things that the LLCD needs to think about and potentially shift a little bit of the focus to is focusing on some of these main lake areas for the dredging on these larger scale projects and provide the safe boating recreation and the areas for all the freeholders. I think that needs to become a priority, or else we're just going to continue to dig these access channels through these birdfoot deltas to a lake that's ever expanding to the west to get to the lake proper. And so if we were to not do any of these dredging operations in-house, and you know, the 171,000 was the average for over the year, but say we just look at like 150,000, every 4 years, we have over $500,000 to come in and do one of these major projects that's going to remove 80 to 100,000 yards of sediment to just save up the money and then do that. I mean, so I think that would be a shift where we could see a higher amount of yardage coming out, you know, for a given amount of time and more efficient projects. So.
Yeah, I agree that we need the common areas is really where we need to be putting our money. And I like the idea of this cost share thought, to where maybe for the dock access, which is where a lot of the resources have gone, that, you know, we come up with maybe some kind of cost share based on a sliding scale. You know, like if there's 12 people back there, well, LLC will cost share X amount. But if there's one person back there, well, you know, and I keep going back to the Dorothy Lane project, which, you know, sounded pretty costly, both in terms of human injury and equipment loss and so on and so forth. And it didn't, you know, benefit that many people. That was obviously not a common area. You know, I've never
Sure.
been back there, other than I drove my jet ski back there to see what was going on when you guys were doing it. And so I'm thinking we're getting to the point that we're not going to be able to, you know, afford to just do this all the time, and that we really should devote our efforts to the common areas. And, you know, another thing that came up when we were talking about dredging the last time, you know, was, you know, where what we should pay for as LLCD, and where's the responsibility of individual, you know, homeowners and stuff. And I also recall when we were meeting for the dredging task force, was that, you know, we're really under no obligation to dredge, really. I mean, there's not a mandate for us to do that. Now, we're doing it because we have to, or we won't have a lake, you know. But I would like to see more cost shares for these 100 level operations, just to ease the burden and allow us to put more effort into the common areas that benefit the whole lake, make it a little more fair. That's kind of my thought, because you know, right now we're putting it all kind of in one spot. So just kind of my thoughts on this as we've gone through this. So,
Steve?
Would you like to have one of us or someone make a motion regarding the contractual relationship with people who do the dredging? Are you looking for a motion?
Tonight, I really just wanted to get the discussion going on how the board feels we should move into the future. We don't have a contract lined up with anybody right now. What I would like to do is come out of this with a general consensus of how we want to move, if we'd like to further explore that. And then what I can do is get potential contracts to look at and bring back to the board, and ultimately develop the policy for what we will pay for,
Well,
what will be.
You said that you were going to be looking at visiting with the folks at Heritage Lake and getting some other information. So that would be one step.
No.
I think the other step is that we really need to look at what a contract would look like, you know, in some detail. And I would like to, you know, add into the mix SRS for some of this. We have an immediate need, which is what makes this hard, because we're gonna have to do something to get debris out and, you know, if we have areas that are urgent, to do riprap and stuff like that, because we don't really have anybody to do that right now.
No, and I would agree, the most urgent thing right now would be the debris that comes in and then ends up along the shoreline and the causeway right there. And
So I don't know, can we think about a short-term kind of thing to get us through this season?
Yeah.
And then look at,
Well-
you know, what if we had someone contracted to do this kind of work every year?
I mean, we're posing up to Heartland right now, you know, because they're gonna do the work for us. Can we talk to them and say, could you spare somebody that come out, you know, obviously we'll pay for this, but can we spare some of your manpower to come run our barge to clean the lake out in the spring?
Yeah, and I've actually reached out to Clinton, our last operator, to see if I can get him to come out potentially on some weekends to do some debris removal. But yeah, so I've reached out to SRS and I'm talking with them to see if we can come out. And the biggest thing is going to be that debris, because even the majority of the other dredging is going to be private dredging. While it'd be ideal to get some private dredging done this year, if all the LLCD accomplishes is over 100,000 yards of sediment removed, I'm going to say that's still a banner year for the LLCD, and it would be nice to be able to bring in, even if as a trial run this year, if we can find a company that would be able to come in and take over that private jobs, and it'd be revenue for them to bring in. And I think I have close to 20 people that have signed up on that interest form, trying to ensure that they can get that work done for this year. I think that would be
Okay.
a priority.
So could I suggest that the dredging study group, which was task force,
yeah.
which is Malcolm, Les, and Debbie, that you all get together and work on these pieces and come back with the detail
Yeah.
at the next meeting, if that's possible.
Correct. And in the meantime, if I can find somebody to come in, like say even if it's just for the debris and stuff, I can utilize our board officers for authorization to contract out a small subset.
Yeah, we've
for
been
that.
talking about a number of ideas, including the Bluestone Tree Company. Because we thought their equipment might be able to reach into the lake.
You know, Adam, could you actually have maybe a separate contract with Heartland to get their person with us providing the equipment? And that might be an easier way to do it. We don't have to mess around with, you know, withholding and not, you know, we just, here's a contract. But part of our contract is we provide the equipment, you provide an operator.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a way
Yeah,
out.
could we, are we allowed to do stuff like that? Yeah.
We'll still have to maintain the equipment.
Well, you're right.
With that deal.
Yeah,
So if the
and-
equipment breaks down,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We do have flexibility as a governmental entity, Indiana law for purchasing as it pertains to services, you know, whatever we deem the most appropriate means for the purchase of services technically complies with state law. When you get into a public works project, when you're getting into the purchase of supplies, there's more specific guidance on that, but we do have more latitude for an actual service, which is what that would be.
Okay.
And then,
No, I mean, I agree with the general commentary that has been out here. I do think that we need to be looking at transitioning so that our primary resources for dredging, whether it's contracted in-house, whatever it may be, should be on the common areas. I'm not opposed to, if the budget supports and we can do that general area, providing grants for that matching for the 100 level ones, if we have the resources. But I think our top priority needs to be those areas that serve the greatest good.
Okay. Then we're agreed that you're gonna keep the band together.
yeah,
here.
so we have
Okay.
just needed some direction to move in, and
Okay.
ideally, even if whether we keep the equipment in-house, whether we get rid of the equipment, ideally the contract would be that they're required to keep this equipment on Lake Lemon with a guaranteed amount of work throughout the year. That way we're not having to, debris comes in, they're rushing to mobilize down, the equipment's already here, somebody keeps it here, they can come down and do that kind of stuff. I mean, so that's what I'm kind of thinking of and what we're discussing. And that kind of brings us to, well, it does bring us to.
So, wait. Our new marina owners have been waiting patiently. Should we let them go next?
Yeah, we can do that.
Adam, I sent you this presentation. I don't know if you have internet connection. If you wanted to put it up on the screen. I know that everybody got a copy. Thanks for your patience with us. I apologize for the lateness. Thanks for having us, board members and district manager Casey. Adam's been very helpful to us getting up and running and figuring out, permitting and everything. And but we've been, my father and I'm Stephen Michael Warner. That's Stephen Anthony Warner. We did buy the marina at the very end of this past year from the Shells, who had been there for 19 years. We've been at the lake. I've been coming here since I was a kid. Actually, my mom's side, people live in Nob Hill or have rented there ever since I was a child. So my dad started coming here like 15 years ago, maybe, and he built a home just down the street, and so this is he sold out of his other business that he was at for 20 years, and so we're happy to have the marina and being we're gearing up for the new season. We think we got some good ideas. We did a big survey. It went out to about 4,000 people. We had about 400 responses, which is a really good 10%. Is a pretty good rate. We did give some gift cards away to a couple of the people picked randomly. So you can see that, we tried to, we had a lot of ideas. We're obviously not going to be able to do all of them, but there are a couple ideas that we thought made a whole lot of sense. So that's why we're here. We're talking to Adam on, the things that really, matter to the board here and that we need to get permission to do. So that's why we're here today to talk about boat rentals. It wasn't in the survey. If you look at the survey results, there wasn't any strong feeling either way. It wasn't one of the most popular things there. Most people were like, yeah, I'd use it every once in a while. But what we've heard since the survey, and you're probably aware that we intend to do a vacation rental, kind of like a suite above where the Shells had lived for years. We've renovated that and we're getting it ready for the season. Along with that, it makes sense when you really look, if you've ever done an Airbnb or Verbo or anything on a lake, especially that there be some kind of watercraft available for those people who come and rent. So what we've heard since the survey from a lot of actually people that live on the lake or have second homes on the lake is that we bring in family, certain times of the summer, and we want a place to rent where they can bring their boats or they can rent boats. I've only got one boat, and they bring in a family. So our Airbnb can sleep up to 10 people. So a large family, and we tend to have families there, and so it's very important to us to keep the character of the lake, and we can kind of go to the next slide here. So here's what we're asking as far as boat rental, and to me it kind of goes hand in hand with some of the other things that we're doing. We'd like the ability to rent one 20-foot pontoon that has a 65 horsepower, so it's not like this big wave runner. It's not a tri-tune, or it's not. We're not looking at take on the liability of a two double-decker with a slide. We're not really looking to do it, but what we want to do is have the ability for families who don't own boats, who want to have a day on the lake, and I think this is a good size watercraft for a family to come out and enjoy the lake. We also recently bought 3 kayaks, used kayaks. Two of them are almost like canoes, really, two-person canoes, and then one person sit in. And so, the thought is, as we're putting the Airbnb together, is that, those people can rent them directly as part of renting that too, either kayaks or, we're also asking for 2 paddle boats. So we already own 1 paddle boat. We're looking to buy another one that's a little bit nicer with a bimini top, for the really sunny days. So that's all we're talking about. We're not, and we don't really have plans. So this is the actual pontoon that we intend to purchase. So you can see it's fairly modest pontoon. It's in real good shape. So we'll, obviously properly register it and insure everything, make sure. So we're going to have the same standards that every other marina does from Lake Monroe. I've done a lot of research looking at what they charge, what the rules are. We're going to enforce, you have to be 24 years old, driver's license. Everybody has to wear a life jacket. We're going to produce a map that say these are the areas of the lake that you can access. We don't want you to take the boat like into Little Africa or certain areas where so give them a map and say this is where you have to stay on the lake, and give them some guidance there. So this is the pontoon that we were looking at possibly renting. You can go to the next slide. These are the kayaks that we've already bought, and I tested them out with my kids a few weeks back when it was nice. The first nice day we had in a long time. It worked great. They're waterworthy, so we didn't get taken there. And then the next slide just shows you that we have this pond. It's a really nice pontoon, but we were looking at another one. I think it's more steel with a bimini top that somebody was selling locally. So, the next slide is, really our pledge, is that we don't want to change the character of Lake Lemon. We're not trying to be Four Winds Marina or any of those marinas on Monroe. We don't want it to be overcrowded either, but we think that from what we've heard from even the people that live around the lake is that, they would use these services, that they're excited. In fact, we've had at least two families come and tour the Airbnb and want to reserve weekends already. And they're all asking either can they bring their boat, and obviously we can get a daily permit, for them if they want to bring a boat and launch it, but we also want the flexibility that somebody can, that doesn't own a boat but obviously is qualified to operate a boat, can do that. So we think this lake's a hidden gem. That's why we work with the Shells to take over the marina, and we just want to improve things, not change things, right? And we don't want to encourage too much traffic or anything like that. So we think with these limited editions, these limited rentals, Adam's. You sent us a contract, right, to look at, for the, have we seen that
For the
yet?
rental, not
Yeah.
really seen that yet.
Yeah.
But we can develop those.
Yeah, so we were gonna work with Adam to, where we'd pay fees, obviously, to the district, to operate that rental business. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You're planning on getting just one pontoon boat? The
Correct.
75 horse, and it's not necessarily tied to the Airbnb. You could rent them separately if people want to.
Yeah, it'll be
Okay.
open. There may be an option where if it's available at the same time that you're renting, you
Okay.
can rent it. Yeah.
But the most important thing I think you said was that you would limit it to people 24 and over.
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing I'm interested in is keeping out the fraternity gang,
Yeah, no, we are too, and in our Airbnb too. We don't.
Sorry,
We
did
have-
I-
Because, Malcolm, we have enough people on the lake that act that way.
Well, one of the rules of Airbnb is, and I'm glad it's a rule, they don't allow parties. And one of our rules is going to be that there's no party you're not bringing your frat house to party at our Airbnb or on our boat, you know, obviously, unless there's somebody's 24 years old, and we can't deny you if you're 24 and you have a driver's license and everybody's wearing their jacket, obviously we have to rent to you, but, you know, we think it's going to be used by families. That's what we've heard from, you know, so far. And the Airbnb is really that size. It's 10-person, you know, so it's, you know, I've gone on many vacations with, you know, my in-laws or whatever and rented this type of place. So we've really, I think, you know, we've maybe gone overboard even in making it really nice. You know, and that's the kind of, we want families to come and enjoy it and not to be party central. We're not Geist, we're not Monroe, right? So, yes, sir.
I have a question. It's kind of for you and Adam. First, it's really nice you've come here and showed us what you're going to do, but
Yeah.
do you really need our permission for any of this?
Yeah, we talked with Adam about
Yeah.
that, and yes, it is for boat rentals specifically. It's in
Okay.
the charter of this.
And by us giving our permission, does that mean we incur any liability?
What we would do is develop a contract where they would relinquish any liability and they would have to provide the insurance for
Okay.
that. So it'd be similar to our other contracts, where it'd be, you know, a minimum $1 million per occurrence, general liability. So we would put the liability on them and take it off of us via that contract.
Yeah, we're already working with Lance Everly on insuring it. Yes, sir.
Well, I know this is beyond our purview, but just to see how it fits in context, are you going to sell beer and carry out and all that there?
Yeah, we have, I don't know if you saw the sign on the, so we are going to do carry out in the store. We're doing some mild renovations in the store, but yeah, we've already applied for an alcohol permit there. We may do some events with the lighthouse. We got some renovation to do on the lighthouse. We are planning an event. You'll be the first to hear about it on May 14th. Where we bring in food trucks, and we will bring a beer truck, and we've already got all that lined up. We'll be actually, that was the number one thing on the survey that people asked for, was community events, so we're gonna try to do 1 or 2 this year and see how it goes. So our first one's planned for May 14, and we're gonna invite everybody. It's gonna be free. Obviously, you're gonna have to pay for your own food. We have a taco truck from Bloomington, indie beer truck coming down. They do beer, wine, and liquor. And then Rasta Pops from Bloomington. They're going to have the fancy popsicles that they make. And then we're going to have some tremendous entertainment. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but there is going to be a big name entertainer that's going to come down and do a solo performance. And we're talking with a DJ that has done events, that has a place around the lake, that has done events around the lake. What's the events he usually involved with on the lake?
The Rock the Dock.
Yeah.
Rock the Dock,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of our tenants at the.
Yeah, so we're talking to him about him providing, and so I've got somebody else lined up, but I don't want to say yet, but you'll
So
see it.
where
You'll see
would
an
you
announcement.
park
What's
for
that?
boat parking? How would you handle that part of it?
So we're gonna try to get a hold of the Knob Hill and see if we can get some overflow there. We're not gonna
He's
allow.
asking about boats.
Oh, boat.
The boat parking for this event you're talking about. I mean, it sounds like,
We're gonna
sounds
ask-
pretty cool, so.
We're going to not allow launch during the hour before, all the way through the event. So we want it. We want it.
Let people go out or in
Right,
with boats.
Not the boats. You know, obviously, want people to come in and park and hang out. But that day, we're gonna for the hour before the event and the hour all the way through that. So we're gonna do 12 to 4. So it's most of the day, really, that we're
Yeah.
going to say, if you want your boat in, do it before.
Yeah.
11.
Well, what I meant was
Yeah.
if you're a landowner or, you know, on the lake,
Yeah.
and you come by boat to the event.
Ah, I see.
Where are you gonna park your boat? Because there's not that much public parking there,
That's
other than at
I
the-
hear what you're saying.
at the gas
Well,
dock.
Right, we're looking at extending the courtesy dock, and that hopefully will happen before then.
Okay.
So going back into that canal, there's a
Oh.
big ugly concrete slab right there that we can kind of cantilever off of it and extend the courtesy dock and then we're putting 4 more slips inside. And so I'm gonna kinda keep some of that open, starting the season off. And then we have the slip for the Chris Craft, the great big slip
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
there. And you can park boats beside it.
Yeah, and we
So-
would like to have more people come up with boats. So we are thinking of ways to accommodate that better. And you know, he said we are going to add some slips inside the jetty, and we might keep, like he said, 1 or 2 open. But I think ultimately we want to do something with the lighthouse. It needs some renovations to make that happen. You know, we might end up doing some events this year there, you know, out of that. But we have that great jetty. We do envision, you know, people being able to bring their boats up and just walk up and get food service. Like, you know, we're talking about hot dogs, bratwurst, things like that.
And they have been very responsible about reaching out to me regarding permitting in front of the shoreline alterations, extending the dock and everything, so we've kind of talked
Absolutely.
about the processes for all that.
It's in
sir.
the packet, it keeps referring to you as the Shell Marina. Are you changing
Well,
the
it's
name?
Werner Marina LLC
It is,
now.
okay.
Just so our name's Werner. We did that. It's the same entity. We literally just stepped into their shoes. We changed the name officially with the state, but it's Werner Marine. But Lake Lemon Marine is our DBA. So you know, either
I mean,
way,
that's what we want everybody to know by is Lake Lemon Marina.
yeah.
You know, we added the logo. We're gonna build a shelter on the front of the marina building, for shade and have some tables out there. And live bait, got live bait tank ready,
Live bait,
and
tackle.
live bait next week.
Yeah, so you'll definitely see changes, positive. We want to make it a nice place to hang out, like people stay, because the porch, it gets hot in the summer and nobody wants to sit up there, you know. We're not going, it's not going to be drastic. It's definitely going to be just to make it more comfortable for everybody. We're going to open up that lawn a little bit more, not have so many boats blocking that off by the gas dock. You know, everything is really, we want it to still be family oriented, you know. Obviously selling beer and, you know, that's an adult thing, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. People are going to do it, you know, might as well have the convenience there. I'm a big beer guy myself, and, you know, for me not have a business and not have that available. That was, by the way, that was the
None
number
of
2
these
thing.
people-
The
none
number
of us
2
have
thing in
ever-
the survey was the beer at the store.
We don't have any, that's what we don't have control over, is their rental, any of the licensing for what they're
It's the
selling out
things
there.
that occur with the water
So-
or the
Correct.
alteration along the
And this
way.
has really, what their current ask has really alleviated my management concerns. The biggest thing that I wanted to make sure we weren't gonna get was these fraternities on double deckers diving off into 4 feet of water, you know, head first into the mud, big parties. I think like our swimming coves are pretty well at capacity as they are now. So from the management perspective, with one 20-foot, 70 or 65 horsepower pontoon, kayaks and paddle boats, as long as we have the contract with the required liability insurance in there, I have no issue with that.
No,
Yep.
Then I think we're
certainly-
good.
I certainly appreciate, you know, the due diligence that you've done, the surveying that you've done.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that too, because I looked at it, and obviously most of this is for you to decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the things that kind of had the highest opposition, none of them, I mean, the highest was the boat rental, but that was only 22.4%,
Yeah.
so not a huge number.
Right.
But when I looked at them at the top 4, you know, they were all things that, if not done right, could alter, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the concern was, are you going to be bringing people in to change the character? And what you've described is very sensitive to that, and I appreciate that. And
Absolutely.
what I saw doesn't give me any
Well,
concern.
We're definitely not looking to bring transients in, you know, we're not, you know, the rental, not only for the Airbnb, but if one of our tenants' boats goes down, which happens frequently, say, hey, you know, you got your family down here, here's a boat sitting there, so we don't really anticipate having much rental from other than the customers
Yeah.
that use the marina.
And like I said, we're already talking to people that already, you know, are tenants with us or live around the lake. We're going to block those times off, you know, for them first. They come to us, I can block those times and go ahead and book it with them directly. So we would rather it be those type, or they're bringing their families in. That's what I you know, for my family too, I'm putting services in there that I want to see. I go for a run on Saturday or Sunday morning. I want somewhere to stop and get coffee. We're gonna have coffee. Okay, that seems like I've run into people walking their dogs and stuff on Sunday morning. And it's like, so we're just trying to do things to make it nicer for the people that are here, we don't expect to be on par with anything in Monroe, but we get calls all the time, like everything's sold out in Monroe, or Monroe's too crazy, or I live in Indianapolis. It'd be a lot faster for me to go to Geist, but that lake is just, so like I say, this is a hidden gem. We're not trying to change that.
So if there's no opposition, I think we could approve a motion to form an agreement for what they're seeking pending review from our attorney and insurance agent.
I'm comfortable making that motion.
I'll
3 seconds.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you very much, and we hope to see y'all out there.
Thank you. So Adam, you now have 4 minutes
Oh my God.
to do the last.
It's arguably one of the biggest things on here. We'll move through it. So on here I have a large barge rental agreement discussion. Heartland Dredging has showed interest in renting our large barge to use alongside their barges for the hydraulic dredging project. Essentially, their hydraulic barge runs along a cable to keep the transect straight, and they would like to use this one since it's on the lake instead of bringing one in, to potentially use it as an anchor point on the deep end of the lake. We had talked about renting it out just through discussion. We were kind of talking about $30,000 for rental for the season, and then the potential to purchase the barge for an additional $30,000, pending Llcd, whether we want to move forward with that. So the way I would like to set this up is, since we barely have the staff and currently don't to run one barge, I'd hate for both of them to be sitting there, and if we can make at least $30,000 on the water, I think it's a go. So as a government, there's a process that we have to follow, obviously, for the lease, rental, etc. There's 2 options to do that, and what I would like us to do is to be potentially for the lease with the potential sale, not obligatory, but that after the lease, the LLCD has the right to either sell for the remaining amount or not, or sell it pending certain clauses. And ideally, what I would like to do is set it up to where we would have a lease for the season, and then the option to sell it pending a contractual agreement that we find satisfactory for any company that were to purchase the barge to keep it on the lake and provide services in the future. Now, that'd be the second part of the contract. We wouldn't have to go through with a sale, but if we're gonna sell one of the barges, it'd be nice to dictate that it's under our approval or agreement with a contract. Because I don't want it to leave the lake. I want it to stay on the lake and have somebody providing services with that.
Go for 40.
Go for 40?
Why'd you pick 30? I mean,
Yeah, we were just chatting there. So the ways that we would do this for a lease or sale, and I've talked with Angela on this, and she actually provided me some guidance on this. We can sell it, we can lease it, we can do a lease with the option to sell at the end of the leasing period. The 2 methods that would be able to do that are method 1, which is the standard default version, where we would need to get appraisals from 2 licensed or professionally engaged appraisers to give us the appraisal value of the barge. And that's what we would base our lease and purchase off of in that agreement. And then obviously there's advertising requirements going along with that. So that would actually put it up for a request for sealed bids to come in and bid on that. The tricky part that I have been finding is finding an appraiser to appraise just the barge. I haven't had any issue with people appraising the trucks, the excavators, kind of that common type equipment. But when I've talked with the other appraisers, I've talked to equipment companies, the standard response that I get is it's worth what people will pay for it. But we can't function on the government of that. So the other option that we have, is if we find that using that method 1 is not ideal or fully plausible due to finding the appraisal values. And the second part of that was it's appraisers or a staff member giving a value, and I refuse to put my name on a value because I don't want that to come back on me. So the second option is to advertise for a request for proposals, and we would advertise in the newspaper a request for proposals for a seasonal lease this year of the barge with the potential purchase of the barge at the LLCD's whim, or not whim, but approval at the end of it, or with an approved contract. So that is the method that I would like to move forward with on this. And the biggest things that I had to, we have to state why that method number 1 isn't fully feasible, and primarily it's because the appraisals and LCD staff is not comfortable putting a number on this. And 2, just the timing of it and the uniqueness that we want it to be used for a project that's benefiting the LLCD, and in the future, if there was a sale, that piece of equipment continues to benefit the LLCD. So those are the 2 biggest things that make it pretty unique. And then the request for proposals, which we can deny if we decided to, really lets the market kind of dictate the pricing on that, to see what the market will bring on that. So we would spell out the purchase contingent on the creation and acceptance of an agreement that we like for the sale of it. And then initially it would just be the rental or lease for this season.
So you do a request for proposal, and then it come back to the board next month, is that what you're proposing?
Correct, yeah, so the request for proposals, we would have to advertise, there's gotta be a week between advertisements, and that last advertisement has to be a minimum of 7 days before we can open them. So we would either have to bring it back to the next meeting, or depending on timing, if we wanted to have a special meeting solely for the purpose of opening the request for proposals, we could do that as well.
Given the urgency
Yeah.
of some other things that
Yeah.
are affected by this, I would say we probably will have to have a special meeting.
Yeah, and it kind of the time frame goes in perfect too with Heartland Dredging, because they're starting to bring the piping in now, and then 3 to 4 weeks they plan on being in the water, so that'd be ideally. So if there's any questions on that, or I just want to make sure the intentions of the board is that given the unfeasibility of getting a good fair market appraisal on it, staff not wanting to put a price on this, allowing the market to dictate, and how it's going to help the LLCD progress our mission of the dredging and providing service to our staff, that we would agree to go with that alternative approach number 2 on the request for proposals. We do need to have a written statement from the board. I would draft that along with Mary Jane to make sure she believes we captured the intentions of the board, and have her sign off on that so we can keep that in our file.
So I would
Sure.
authorize I would move to authorize staff working with the board chair and legal counsel to prepare a request for proposals for the leasing
potential
and
purchase.
potential
Lease and
sale
potential
of
purchase.
the large barge.
And push boat.
It's been moved and seconded that, that we go through what, Michael?
Whatever that was.
That we do that. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
And that's the end of me for today.
It's the end of the meeting. Our next meeting, we'll be back here at CBU on April 28th. And I would just take 10 seconds to say, we are looking at having a picnic at the shelter house for the June meeting. And just want to put that bug in your ear. It's going to stop raining and it's going to get warmer. So we will do that.
You have a date on that?
Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, it's a
June.
Saturday following the third
it's the
Wednesday of June.
Yeah, it's in our regular meeting. It's
18th,
our
yeah.
regular meetings, 18th. With that, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. Sure.
Jump in for just a second before this would be under the category of new business, because this is just something that came to me today. In my spare time, as if there were any, I'm also working with Clint Studebaker on the sewers, putting in sewers in the Brown County end of the lake. And it turns out that the Brown County, under the America Rescue Plan, Brown County received $3 million. And it's up to the discretion of the Brown County commissioners whether they even want to spend the money. But we have been trying to petition them to get the first little chunk of money, it's like $50,000, to get the surveys done and stuff that need to be done in order to get this process moving. And they're saying, no, we'll just hang on to the money. So, but we will take public comment. And so with that, Clint sent me this little email suggesting that everybody that actually does want sewers around the lake should contact the Brown County Commissioners and say, we're all for this, we want to move ahead, so.
Can,
Yeah, we need a way to.
Yeah, okay.
can you forward it?
Yeah, sure, I can forward this to whom?
I would say forward it to the board, but
You can send it to the office and we can send it out on.
We can
contact.
send it out
Just
on
for the record,
constant
it's
contact.
commissioners@browncounty-in.us.
We can
so,
share that
and
as
we
well,
can
so
just
that-
flag it to say, you know, people will know right away if they don't live in Brown County, this isn't for them, but
Right.
we can
And
put
this
it-
will be the bellwether for Monroe County too, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you want to write just a little blurb about that with the context, send that to me, then I'll send it out to our listeners.
Okay, I'll try to get it out before the meeting's
You know
over.
it's Brown County to fix everyone.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
the whole
I mean, I can
life.
give you a little bit more information if you're interested, because I think you would be less.
Yeah.
Um,
Just telling
you.
As
Okay.
part of
I-
the exercise here, Clint had water samples taken down Bean Blossom Creek, from Bean Blossom through Helmsburg into the lake, and then sent them out for analysis, not just analysis for E. coli, but what the source is. And it turns out that all of them were over the limit, and the human factor was 50 to 90% of that. So
Okay.
we definitely need the sewers.
We need sewers.
And I
Well,
would certainly encourage if you're a property owner in Brown County, the commissioners are going to be more interested in what you have to say versus someone from
Monroe
not
County,
Brown
yeah.
County.
Right.
And especially if you're a registered voter in Brown County.
Right. Exactly.
And with that, I'll move to close.
All
the
right,
meeting.
but what I would ask, Malcolm, is as you get more information, let's see if we need to actually put this on the agenda as a bigger discussion topic.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. All right,
He made the motion, I'll make the second.
it's been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor? Aye. And if you're opposed, you're welcome to stay.